the lawfare, they were using it before the election campaign, and since the landslide victory, it seems to be all they have is just trying to obstruct Trump through the courts, going to the most activist judges they can find to try to frustrate the agenda. Is it working, though? Is it causing this chaos that is frustrating the Trump administration?
I don't think it's working at all, Rita. And the reason I say that is because most of their efforts with the law have been around the issue of immigration. That's the one area where Donald Trump's numbers are still very, very good. The American people are with him on immigration. He is winning on that issue, despite the fact that the Democrats have gone overboard trying to protect all of these gangbangers that Trump is so eager to get out of the country.
Now, this is a bombshell story. Let's look at the New York Post report on this. The FBI botched its investigation of the 2017 congressional baseball shooting, downplaying the gunman's anti-GOP, the anti-Republican motives. Despite having handwritten evidence, they wrongly claimed that it was a suicide by cop attack. This is the findings of a report by the House Judiciary Committee, the Intelligence Committee and Intelligence Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigation. They combed through around 3,000 case file documents on this attack that wounded 6 people, including the current House Majority Leader, Steve Scalise, who was very lucky to survive that shooting. Let's hear from him.
They ultimately let us know what their conclusion was, and that's when they said it was classified as suicide by cop. And I'll tell you, I was offended. I think all of us there were highly offended that that was the conclusion that the FBI in 2017 came to, because it wasn't what happened on the baseball field. He went there with the intention of killing all of us on the baseball field, and he had a list in his pocket of other Republicans he wanted to kill. It was very politically motivated, and it was clear they suppressed a lot of facts. And what the FBI report that Kash Patel's FBI came out with today shows they suppressed factual evidence to reach a different conclusion.
Batya, this is just a shocking example of why the FBI needs reform, why it has become so mistrusted by huge segments of the community. This man went there to kill Republicans.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny because there's this canard in the United States that's promulgated by the left that political violence is something that happens on the right. And the reason that they are able to get away with this lie is because it is the right that is heavily armed in America. But the vast majority of the political violence in this country comes from the political left, the vast majority. And this is a perfect example of that, to where the FBI itself was engaged in this alleged cover-up of left-wing, anti-conservative political violence because it doesn't fit the narrative that they have been pushing to smear Republicans and smear conservatives as being violent, when these are people who own a lot of guns and never, ever use them in a political manner.
Well, the examples of left-wing violence in America just in recent years are enormous. We saw those BLM riots that destroyed neighbourhoods, cities, around $2 billion worth of damage, around 20 people killed, dozens more seriously injured. We hardly had any condemnation of that, and yet the Democrats went on about the January 6 riots for 5 years. That's all we've been hearing about since it occurred. The Antifa riots. Right now we're seeing Tesla dealerships and individuals who own Teslas having their property vandalised. So the examples are vast, not to mention the campus protests. And let's talk about the campus protests, because there's been some consequences to that. Columbia University is going to have to cut around 180 staff members because the Trump administration has announced it's cancelling $400 million in federal funding. The Columbia University announced these cuts overnight. The Ivy League school was targeted for these cuts because of its failure to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitic harassment. I'm having trouble feeling sorry for Columbia here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The things that the Trump administration is asking from these universities are things that they already owe their students in exchange for federal funding. We have civil rights laws that they are expected to follow, which they really fail to do in the case of Jewish students. I'm not one who felt that Jewish students were actually unsafe. I don't like that language. I think it diminishes the power that we have in our community. I don't think they were physically unsafe. But what they were, Rita, was they were discriminated against by an administration that treats all of its students one way and its Jewish students another way, and it expected them to just eat the harassment that they were facing, and that is discriminatory. And as a result, the Trump administration has withdrawn its funding. It's such an amazing moment. I mean, as a Jewish American, to see the president standing up for my rights. It's a really, really wonderful thing that's happening. Unfortunately, many, many Jews in America are on the left and are Democrats, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the community. And so they don't really recognize what a gift this is. That does not diminish the fact that the Trump administration is standing up for our community in a very unique and unprecedented way. And I am very grateful for it.
Well, the Trump administration has stood up for the Jewish community in America in an unprecedented way, but also for the state of Israel. The support it has given Israel during the first Trump administration, it continues to give. And yet, as you mentioned there, Batya, the majority of Jewish Americans vote left, and they still did, even after all the violence we saw on campuses, all the left-wing violence, the fact that Kamala Harris did not pick the best VP candidate, Shapiro, because he's Jewish, he served in the IDF, and she thought that was going to cause her some problems, despite the fact it was the governor of Pennsylvania, a crucial swing state. I could go on. What is it going to take for the Jewish community to break that, you would call it toxic relationship with the Democrats? The Democrats have got deep-seated anti-Semitic issues within the party.
So I'm so glad you asked me that, because I'm currently writing my third book on this exact topic, why Jews are Democrats and why the left is turning on the Jews. The reason that Jewish Americans are overwhelmingly Democrat is the same reason any group in America is overwhelmingly Democrat, which is a lot of American Jews have a college degree. So about 30% of Americans have a college degree, 60% of American Jews have a college degree. So what you would expect from that, college being the #1 predictor for Democrat politics, would be that the community would be twice as likely to vote for the Democrats, and that's exactly the numbers you see. However, this is all changing because my community, the Orthodox community, is a lot less beholden to the woke ideology in the universities. The ultra-Orthodox community doesn't go to college at all and is much more likely to be conservative. Of course, we have conservative social values. And so, in 30 years and 40 years, most American Jews will be Republicans just because the Orthodox have so many more children, and a lot of the non-Orthodox marry out and their children are not Jewish at all. So the community is really rapidly changing right now.
Now, let's get back to that lawfare we were speaking about and attempts to obstruct the Trump administration's policies. The Trump administration has had some good news this week, with the Supreme Court yesterday siding with Trump in lifting a lower court order. This is going to that was pausing the transgender military ban from taking effect. This means Trump's orders will proceed. Tell me about this decision and why this policy was introduced in the first place.
This is one of those issues where the administration just has the support of 80% of Americans. I think there is a feeling that transgender individuals are on a lot of medications. There is the question of gender dysphoria, which is a mental illness, and many trans people, that is how they describe what it means to be transgender. And these are just things that you don't necessarily want to have to be thinking about in a military context of heightened security, intense emotions, intense physicality. Men, I think, very much are trained to be protectors. If they're in a situation, a combat situation, and their fellow soldier is a woman or looks like a woman, it could be mistaken for a woman. This is a thorny situation. And I think right now the military is sort of reorienting itself under the guidance of Trump and Pete Hegseth to be more traditional in its values, in its approach, in its aesthetic, and in terms of recruitment, giving men a feeling of pride in being protectors and being part of the military. So I think that the Trump administration politically is on very solid ground. This is not like saying you can't be gay in the military. It's very different because it's a very, there's this feeling among the Democrats, the left, they think of LGBT as one thing, but normal people, like regular middle class, working class people, they really don't see it that way. They see gay as, being totally consistent with all their other conservative values. They know gay people, they go to church with gay people, and they see trans in a very different light, especially when it comes to things like transgender people in women's sports or in women's bathrooms or talking to their children or in the military.
There is a separation happening within that community. Some would like it to be a more profound separation, but certainly there are plenty of people who are at the LGBT end of the spectrum who have no time for the rest of the letters and their activism. Batya Ungar-Sargon, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita. God bless.